Is it alcohol? Is it marijuana? Is it cocaine? Is it pills?
It has been. At times.
All?
At times.
Drugs have never spared anyone. They don't just destroy the body and steal away youth, they turn Hollywood's brightest goddesses into withered shadows, decaying souls drowning in liquor and powder. Among them, 17 black actresses, once celebrated on the red carpet, fell one by one in horrifying scenes. The hand of addiction dragged them from the peak of fame down into the filthiest depths. And today, in this video, we will expose the cruel truth behind the downfall of these black screen icons to see just how terrifyingly deep they sank into the spiral of addiction. 1. Tamara Dobson. The Cleopatra goddess turned into a living mummy on stage. Tamara Dobson once left America breathless when she appeared on the big screen in 1973's Cleopatra Jones. Standing 6'2" with blazing eyes and a goddess-like stride, she was the first true black female hero in cinema. But that glory was as fleeting as a firework, brilliant and then gone. When Hollywood killed off the blaxploitation genre, everything vanished overnight. Tamara was swept aside from contracts as if she had never existed. That was when the real nightmare began. By the late 1970s, her small Los Angeles apartment had become a tomb for a star still alive. No phone calls, no new scripts, only the clinking of bottles against the wall and pills scattered across the floor. Tamara drained every drop of whiskey, swallowed painkillers to escape reality. On the morning of July 12, 1979, her best friend walked in and froze in shock. She lay motionless on the sofa, reeking of alcohol, the floor littered with shattered pills. Not a single paper cared. Hollywood turned its back. The real-life Cleopatra had become unwanted. In the years that followed, liquor and pills wore down her body piece by piece. The legendary dark hair fell out in clumps on her pillow. The towering figure had wasted away to little more than bones draped in an old silk dress. Each step in her once famous high heels felt like a knife piercing flesh. The tragedy reached its peak in 1987 when Tamara appeared at a fashion show in Baltimore. The audience expected the comeback of an icon, but when the velvet curtain rose, they froze. Before them stood a trembling ghost, hollow eyes, a body so emaciated it looked mummified. The press the next morning was merciless. Cleopatra is now nothing more than a living mummy. After that humiliation, Tamara vanished from the spotlight. She had to sell the costumes that once made her famous in Cleopatra Jones just to buy medicine and pay debts. Once she bitterly confessed to friends, "I used to walk the red carpet in expensive silk gowns. Now I have to beg my doctor to let me owe him for medicine." That sentence cut through her pride like a blade. In her final years, she lived quietly in the Keswick nursing home in Baltimore. A cold white room, the smell of disinfectant, the hurried hiss of machines counting down her life. Multiple sclerosis left Tamara paralyzed, her lungs so weak every breath was a battle. On the afternoon of October 2, 2006, she took her last breath in absolute solitude. Tamara Dobson, once hailed as America's Cleopatra, died like a ghost, abandoned by Hollywood. 2. Pam Grier. The sex symbol and the infertility sentence from Cocaine Pam Grier was celebrated across Hollywood as a goddess. When Coffee premiered in the summer of 1973, audiences witnessed for the first time a black woman wielding a gun on the big screen. Powerful, fiery, defiant. Just a year later, Foxy Brown turned Pam into a blazing star, an icon the press hailed as the sex queen of American cinema. But that light was quickly smothered by the deadly white powder seeping into every corner of Hollywood: cocaine. One night in September 1975, Pam inhaled cocaine for the first time off a silver mirror on Sunset Strip. The instant euphoria made her believe she had found the key to holding on to fame. In reality, she had opened the door to hell. In the years that followed, cocaine became a shadow that clung to her, leaving her drained. By early 1980, inside a Los Angeles clinic, her private doctor spoke bluntly. If she didn't stop, she would be dead within 18 months. That warning cut like ice, yet it couldn't undo what was already lost. Her own body began to betray her. Irregular cycles, agonizing cramps, and medical tests later confirmed a brutal truth. Her uterus and ovaries had suffered severe damage, the consequence of drugs and years of reckless living. When the doctor told her she could never conceive, Pam broke down in tears, buried her face in her hands, whispering, "Cocaine has taken away my right to be a mother." In later interviews, Pam Grier would bitterly revisit that wound. A career could be rebuilt, fame could return, but infertility was a life sentence. She admitted that every time she saw a woman holding a child, her heart ached. Cocaine hadn't just stolen her youth and health, it robbed her of the most sacred dream of all, to hear her own baby's cry in her arms. 3. Dorothy Dandridge, the Oscar star who begged Hollywood for help in addiction. Everyone knew Dorothy Dandridge. In 1954, when she walked the red carpet with Carmen Jones, she became the first black woman ever nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress. Dressed in a blazing red gown, she was whispered about as the Black Rose. But that dazzling spotlight was nothing but a false promise. Once the Oscar door closed, Hollywood turned its back, leaving Dorothy to plunge straight into darkness. No new roles, no studio lights. Dorothy faced devastating personal tragedies. Her first marriage to Harold Nicholas collapsed in betrayal, leaving her to raise a child alone. Her second marriage to Jack Dennison seemed like refuge, but became another nightmare. Jack drained her finances and tormented her with cruel humiliation. After the divorce, Dorothy was penniless, scarred, and disgraced. Worse still, her daughter Carolyn was born with brain damage, intellectually disabled, unable to care for herself. Dorothy loved her desperately, but when she was forced to place her in a special care facility, she wept and confessed in anguish. "I am a failed mother." From then on, Dorothy stopped fighting. She sought escape in alcohol and sleeping pills. Night after night, she drained bottles of whiskey and swallowed handfuls of pills, hoping for hours of oblivion. Her once beautiful face puffed, her eyes went hollow. Once, at a lavish Beverly Hills party, Dorothy collapsed on the floor, a shattered glass at her side as whispers spread. The Oscar star was now nothing but a pitiful addict. On the night of September 7th, 1965, in her small West Hollywood apartment, Dorothy picked up the phone. Her voice trembled, hoarse. "I can't take it anymore." It was her final cry for help. No one came, perhaps because they had grown too accustomed to her desperate calls. The next morning, Dorothy was found lifeless on the floor. An empty bottle, scattered pills. The coroner's reports conflicted: overdose or embolism. But that detail no longer mattered. What mattered was that Dorothy Dandridge, the first black woman ever nominated for an Oscar, died impoverished, alone, with no hand to hold at the end. 4. Tina Turner, the Queen of Rock and Roll. Trapped in darkness. Tina Turner was born in 1939 in Nutbush, Tennessee. From her teenage years, she loved singing and soon became a stage sensation. By the 1970s, she stood at the peak of rock and roll, with a powerful voice and explosive moves that captivated audiences around the world. But behind the spotlight, her life was a nightmare. Her husband and musical partner, Ike Turner, was both the platform that put Tina on stage and the chain that dragged her into hell. Ike controlled everything, from money to her private life. He beat her, humiliated her, and forced Tina to use cocaine just to endure the endless tours. One night in July 1976, in Dallas, right before a show, Ike punched Tina in the face, blood dripping onto her collar. With only minutes left before stepping on stage, she was forced to inhale cocaine in the dressing room, wipe away the blood, and then face thousands of cheering fans as if nothing had happened. That night, the lights were dazzling and the applause was deafening, but inside, Tina was nothing but unbearable pain. Later, in her memoir, she revealed a shocking detail. At one point, in utter despair, Tina had taken an overdose of sleeping pills, wanting to end it all. Luckily, a friend discovered her in time, or the world might have lost the fire of rock and roll in her youth. In 1978, after more than a decade of torment, Tina filed for divorce. She walked away with nothing but her stage name, Tina Turner, to start over. Though she later came back more glorious than ever, each time she looked back, Tina bitterly admitted that she had lost her youth to the darkness of violence and drugs. 5. Natalie Cole. Almost died. In a Bayou apartment, Natalie Cole was once hailed as a shining star of the 1970s and 1980s, not only dazzling in music, but also proving herself in television and film, including the unforgettable Lily in Winter. Yet that brilliance concealed a bitter truth. As a student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, she slipped into heroin and cocaine. In December 1973, friends recalled finding her collapsed in the dormitory, lips blue, heart racing. Many thought it was just exhaustion, but in reality, it was the beginning of a decades-long hell. Her legendary father, Nat King Cole, was not only her pride, but a crushing weight. Every time she stepped on stage, she feared she could never measure up to him. Years of spiraling addiction ravaged her body. In May 1983, she nearly died in a Los Angeles apartment from an overdose. Friends frantically called an ambulance. Doctors had to use electric shocks to drag her back from the edge of death. Only weeks later, Natalie entered rehab. There, she faced herself in sleepless nights, trembling, drenched in sweat. The media buzzed with headlines, but few knew that every morning she woke fighting not to relapse. By the 1990s, Natalie returned to the top with her album Unforgettable. With Love, where she sang with her father's voice thanks to new technology. The world believed she had defeated drugs, but the truth was harsher. Insiders whispered that even as she held a Grammy in 1992, the shadows of her past still haunted her eyes. Needle scars on her arms were hidden beneath glamorous gowns, but her soul never escaped. On December 31, 2015, Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles announced Natalie Cole's death from heart failure and pneumonia, direct consequences of years of damage from heroin and cocaine. Death came on New Year's Eve, a night meant for laughter and new beginnings, but instead became a bitter farewell. Her immense musical legacy, once expected to shine like her father's, was forever shadowed by her years of addiction. 6. Whoopi Goldberg, the Broadway clown performing high on cocaine. In the early 1980s, Whoopi Goldberg was seen as a strange but promising new face. Her biting humor made audiences laugh and then fall silent. In 1985, the color purple made her a star, opening the path to glory. Few knew that at that very time, Whoopi was deeply tied to cocaine. In the early 1980s, Whoopi Goldberg was seen as a strange but promising new face. Her biting humor made audiences laugh and then fall silent. In 1985, the color purple made her a star, opening the path to glory. Few knew that, at that very time, Whoopi was deeply tied to cocaine. The reasons were not only professional pressure. Her first marriage had ended. Fleeting affairs left her hollow. To escape, Whoopi turned to cocaine, believing it kept her sharp on stage. Then, in 1984, rumors shocked the theater world. Whoopi had performed an entire night on Broadway after snorting cocaine in her dressing room. the audience never noticed, rising to give her a standing ovation. But behind the curtain, colleagues saw her drenched in sweat, hands trembling, eyes bloodshot. They were stunned that the rising star had acted through a high. Cocaine made her live a double life, a radiant star in public, a lost woman backstage. It took years for Whoopi to quit and find balance again. But her youth was already clouded by that deadly powder, leaving her artistic journey stained with nights of haunting memories. 7. Oprah Winfrey. The media queen and a past with an addicted lover. Before becoming the queen of television with The Oprah Winfrey Show, Oprah Winfrey lived a chaotic youth. Born into poverty and raised with memories of abuse, she entered her 20s carrying wounds that were hard to heal. When she began her TV career in Baltimore, Oprah fell into a relationship filled with emotional abuse. The man she loved was the one who led her to drugs. Lonely nights turned into nights clouded with cocaine and crack. On a night in September 1983, just weeks before signing on with AM Chicago, Oprah spiraled into a severe breakdown. In a cramped apartment, she smoked crack until she collapsed on the sofa, tears rolling down her face after breaking up with her addicted lover. A close friend rushed over, panicking at the sight of cut straws and white residue on the table. Oprah whispered, "I just want to forget everything." If word had gotten out that night, her young career would have gone up in smoke before it even began. The hospital records were sealed, the truth buried to protect the image of a promising young host. Oprah survived and seized the golden opportunity from AM Chicago. She cut ties with drugs in a hurry, turning her fear into fuel to build an empire. But the bare truth is that on that night in 1983, one more hit of crack could have buried everything: love, career, and the dream of becoming the most powerful figure in American television. 8. Whitney Houston. The incident that foretold the end. Whitney Houston reached the summit of global music in the 1980s. Her soaring voice and sky-splitting high notes, then The Bodyguard in 1992, made her a worldwide icon. The brighter the fame, the deeper the shadows. Behind the curtain were fights and jealousy with Bobby Brown, the pressure of being an international star who had to be flawless, the fear of having to top herself every single night. From there, cocaine and then crack slipped into her life as a false remedy to calm her nerves. The more she used, the less control she had. The slide showed itself during her 1999 European tour. In a hotel in Germany, the team suddenly couldn't reach Whitney for hours. The door stayed shut. When it was opened, according to backstage whispers, she was found collapsed in the bathroom, breathing heavily, with white powder on the tile. That night's show was canceled at the last minute. The press release said only that the artist was ill and needed rest. After that incident, Whitney's voice was never the same. The top notes frayed, the breath broke, and her eyes on stage looked more tired. She tried to come back in the years that followed. It was still Whitney in the spotlight, but behind her were broken stretches marked by relapse. Then came February 11, 2012, at the Beverly Hilton in Los Angeles, when the world got the terrible news. Whitney Houston was found in a bathtub, gone on the eve of the Grammys. The coroner listed drowning, with traces of cocaine and other substances in her system. That death sealed the tragedy of a genius who once left the planet in awe. 9. Chaka Khan. The white traces hurried off the floor. Chaka Khan was hailed as the Queen of Funk and R&B in the 1970s and 1980s, her explosive voice shaking stages, and her appearance in the Blues Brothers cementing her diva status in popular culture. Behind the glittering lights, Chaka carried a wild magnetism and a presence no one could replace. But the pressure of holding the crown, endless tour schedules, sleepless studio nights, and a lavish lifestyle opened the door for drugs and alcohol to creep in. At first it was a way to fight fatigue, then heroin, cocaine, and late-night drinks became a rhythm that bound her for a decade. The price came due in September 1984 in Los Angeles. After a string of exhausting recording nights, Chaka was found unconscious in a hotel room. The door swung open to a chill in the air, a towel thrown over a chair, a half-spilled glass still on the table. A statement quickly cited exhaustion, but backstage whispers spoke of white traces hurriedly swept from the floor. Only a year later, in July 1985 in Chicago, a major partnership contract fell apart at the last moment. Chaka vanished for days, unreachable, with rumors swirling that she had overdosed. Management scrambled to cover for her, cut off contact, and bury the truth to keep the star image from collapsing on the spot. When she returned, golden chances had slipped away. The voice wasn't as full as before, her health was depleted, and major projects quietly fell out of reach. Later, Chaka Khan bravely entered rehab and tried to rebuild. But even facing the crowd again, she admitted with bitterness that 10 peak years had been stolen by drugs and alcohol. A decade that should have shone bright ended up like a black and white reel of broken glory and doors shut forever. 10. Vanity. The siren who fell in a war against her own body, Denise Matthews, known as Vanity, was once hailed as an emblem of 1980s allure. She blazed alongside Prince, glowed on screen in The Last Dragon, and became Hollywood's dream. But offstage, Vanity dove into crack cocaine as a way out. That white smoke didn't just steal her career, it gnawed at her body day after day and handed her a quiet death sentence. The most shocking detail came in 2015, when doctors told her she had encapsulating peritoneal sclerosis, a rare condition in which the peritoneum hardens and wraps around the intestines like a deadly cocoon. For a woman once celebrated for her figure, it was a merciless collapse. Vanity weakened, her abdomen swelled, and cramping pain turned every step into torture. Fans remembered a fiery Vanity in slick leather, but in reality, she lay curled in a hospital bed, relying on daily peritoneal dialysis to survive. From million-dollar diva to asking the public for donations to pay medical bills, the image left many stunned. An icon who once ruled the screen, now pleading for every dollar to prolong life. Then, on February 15, 2016, in a hospital in Fremont, California, Vanity took her last breath from kidney failure, ending a long battle in a body ravaged by drugs. The shock wasn't only her passing, it was the raw truth it exposed, from a blazing siren to the most pained victim of the very addictions that swallowed her life. 11. Queen Latifah. Broken after her brother's death. By the late 1980s, Queen Latifah was already a rare voice among female rappers in a world full of gender bias. Her confidence, powerful delivery, and unique style turned her into an icon. The 1990s opened new doors, film, television, and opportunities for Latifah to break through as a true multi-talented artist. But everything collapsed in a single fateful night. In March 1992, her brother Lancelot, her closest companion and greatest source of strength, died in a motorcycle accident. The news cut into her heart like a knife. Latifah could not believe that a blood-stained helmet was all that was left. From a proud sister, she became a lost soul with no direction. The pain was so overwhelming that she turned to alcohol, then to drugs, as a way to punish herself and numb the grief. The most shocking scene was told by her friends. Inside her small New Jersey apartment, Latifah would often sit motionless for hours, holding her brother's helmet, with an empty bottle beside her and white traces smeared across the table. One night, they had to break the door down, only to find her sprawled out on the floor, tears streaking her face, breath heavy with liquor, her body trembling in withdrawal. A queen who once seemed invincible was reduced to a shattered figure consumed by loss. Throughout that decade, many major film projects slipped away because Latifah wasn't stable enough to take them on. She later admitted that without drugs and alcohol, her transition from rap to acting would have come sooner and shone brighter. In time, Latifah managed to get clean, rise again, and become a globally celebrated artist. But the wound of 1992 remains a lasting shadow. Her brother's death not only took away a loved one, it crushed the heart of an icon and left behind years soaked in tears and smoke. 12. Mary J. Blige. Addiction stole her memory. Mary J. Blige stepped into the spotlight in the 1990s as a phenomenon, the queen of hip-hop soul, with a raspy voice soaked in pain. But behind the fiery melodies, few knew that a childhood of abuse had made her a target for drugs and alcohol since her teenage years. When her career exploded, Mary sank deeper into cocaine, believing it helped her survive the pressure. But in truth, it left behind brutal damage no one could imagine. The shocking part was the long-term toll that not only destroyed her health, but also stole her memory and her ability to focus. Mary once admitted that there were stretches during the 1990s when she could not even remember recording an entire album because everything passed by in a haze of drugs and alcohol. She could sing, sign contracts, pose for photos, but later her memory was completely blank. Even close friends recalled moments when Mary stared straight at them with empty eyes, unable to recognize familiar faces. This temporary amnesia caused by drugs robbed Mary of pieces of her youth, moments that should have been the brightest in an artist's life. Later, Mary overcame her addiction and came back stronger, even earning an Oscar nomination for Mudbound. But looking back, she bitterly admitted that the cruelest thing drugs stole was not just her physical strength, but her memories, those radiant years she could never reclaim. 13. Jada Pinkett. Smith. A life scheduled. Around drugs. Jada Pinkett Smith was once celebrated in Hollywood as a fierce warrior and a glamorous icon of the 1990s. She made her name with films like The Nutty Professor and rose to international stardom as Niobe in The Matrix Reloaded in 2003. Audiences saw her as a proud, strong woman, standing beside her powerful husband Will Smith and raising talented children. But behind the glittering surface, Jada carried a long nightmare, a deadly spiral of alcohol and drugs few could have imagined. In the mid-1990s, as her career was just beginning to bloom, Jada often threw herself into all-night parties in Los Angeles. On some nights, friends found her passed out on the bathroom floor, breathing heavily, her apartment reeking of alcohol and drugs. In a later confession, she admitted she once lived by a haunting schedule, mornings with hard liquor, afternoons with marijuana, and nights ending with cocaine. It was no longer casual experimenting, but absolute enslavement. Even in 1996, while filming Set It Off, Jada sometimes shook on set, her eyes glazed, her voice unstable. The director had to halt filming, co-stars had to cover for her, while she sank quietly into fear of herself. Later, Jada admitted that if she had not stopped, she could have died at 25, right as her star was just beginning to shine. It was not until she became a wife and mother that Jada finally chose to walk away from that hell. In June 2017, she stunned the world by revealing she had been sober for 20 years. That revelation shook Hollywood. The cold warrior on screen had once been a broken soul under the weight of addiction. 14. Naomi Campbell, the supermodel who fell in the white haze. Naomi Campbell, the golden face of 1990s fashion, was the first black supermodel to dominate major magazine covers and walk the world's most prestigious runways. But just as she stood at the peak, Naomi fell into addiction, and for years her career and image were stained with scandal. The most shocking episodes were her public battles with failed rehab attempts. In 1999, Naomi was hospitalized in Italy after an overdose, and when the news leaked, it rocked the fashion world. Instead of hiding it, the press detailed her agonizing withdrawals and loss of control. From 2000 to 2007, she was repeatedly tied to violent incidents, throwing phones at assistants and attacking staff, all fueled by her addiction and explosive anger when deprived of drugs. Each time she appeared in public, Naomi promised sobriety, only to relapse within months. The glamorous supermodel on the runway was a stark contrast to the trembling woman in rehab. For Naomi, cocaine did not only destroy her health, it turned her life into a string of public scandals, forcing the world to witness a beauty icon burning herself alive under the lights of fashion. 15. Stacey Dash, a childhood stolen by Vicodin. Stacey Dash, the star of Clueless, 1995, once dazzled with her striking beauty and fashion image, but inside she lived a life eaten away by addiction since childhood. At just 8 years old, Stacey began using Vicodin, growing up in a family where substance abuse was a daily reality. The tiny pills became her only escape from fear and a broken home. As her career bloomed, the habit tightened its grip. At her worst, she was taking 18 to 20 pills a day, her body collapsing, her mind clouded. By the early 2000s, Stacey had hit rock bottom, bankrupt, stripped of money, relationships, and reputation. In one haunting collapse, she was found lying in the bathroom with a half-empty pill bottle in her hand, while outside her little daughter knocked desperately on the door, calling for her mother. Stacey later admitted that in that moment, she no longer felt human, only a shell existing for pills. Hollywood had once adored Stacey Dash, but inside, she had lost everything, her childhood, her career, and nearly herself, to Vicodin. 16. Brandy Norwood, the R&B princess who prayed for death. Brandy Norwood was once America's dream girl, Moesha dominating television, her R&B hits topping the charts. But the glow of her teenage fame soon turned into a crushing weight. By the late 1990s, Brandy had fallen into deep depression, turning to drugs and alcohol to cope with the unbearable pressure of perfection in front of millions. The breaking point came in 1999, when Brandy admitted she often sat alone in hotel rooms, the table littered with bottles and sleeping pills, with only one thought in her mind: to end it all. She once wrote in her diary that she did not want to live another day. In public, Brandy still smiled brightly, still sang, still carried the crown of R&B princess. But behind closed doors, she was just a teenage girl crying herself dry, trembling over a bottle, praying for death to free her from loneliness and pressure. Many major projects were nearly canceled because Brandy disappeared for hours, found unconscious from overdoses. If not for friends who intervened, her career and life might have ended at 20, right when the world was still calling her name under the brightest lights. 17. Billie Holiday. Heroin turned an angel into a prisoner. Billie Holiday, the legendary voice behind Strange Fruit, once made the world bow its head in silence. But away from the spotlight, she drowned in heroin, a drug that both numbed her childhood pain and slowly stole her golden voice. In the 1940s, every night Billie sang in the finest clubs, audiences enchanted by every note. Yet as soon as she left the stage, she sought her next fix. Stories tell of nights when the needle was still on the table, and Billie had to walk out to sing, lips trembling, but her voice still holding the room breathless. In 1947, at the height of her career, Billie was arrested for heroin possession. The image of a diva in a black dress, wrists shackled, walking out of the courthouse shocked America. After prison, she lost her license to perform in New York, forced to sing in dingy bars where dim lights fell on her gaunt face and bloodshot eyes. Even in the summer of 1959, when Billie was hospitalized for liver and heart failure, tragedy still surrounded her. Police raided her hospital room, ripped through her pillows and drawers, then announced they had found heroin on her bed. They handcuffed her immediately, shackling her to the hospital bed. The woman who had given her life to music lay there with frail wrists bound in cold steel, an IV still in her arm. Friends said she cried in despair, begging, "I don't have the strength to stand anymore. Why are you still doing this to me?" Instead of care, Billie was guarded like a criminal. On July 17, 1959, she took her last breath under watch, with no kiss from her audience, only chains at her side. That scene became a stain in history. One of the greatest voices of the 20th century died like a prisoner, leaving behind an immortal legacy, but also a chilling reminder of how cruel society can be to artists broken by addiction. These tragedies prove one undeniable truth: drugs spare no one, not even the brightest goddesses of Hollywood. From Cleopatra Jones to Whitney Houston or Billie Holiday, all were brought down by the white powder and the bottle, leaving haunting images behind. Chains on a hospital bed, cold bathtubs, unfinished stages. It is a chilling reminder of the merciless price of fame. Which story shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep uncovering the hidden truths in the next videos.